Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be another slightly lower quality video. And the reason for that is it is much faster for me to upload these lower quality videos. They don't have any interruption time uploading them. They don't have a very long processing time. And I can upload them while doing other stuff in the background on my computer, as opposed to my iPhone for some reason, which takes much better quality videos and picks up a lot better sound quality. It takes at least 30 minutes to upload even just a 15-minute video with processing and everything, and it burns in my screen, which is, not fun. And I can't do anything else while it's doing that. It has to stay on that screen while it's uploading. So probably a fluke somewhere. Maybe I could update it or find a better program. But for now, I'm just going to use this uploading device because it's just so much easier. You can see my little fuzzies too. Super blurry fuzzies on the screen though. So let's talk about the Magician today. This is the next card in the tarot. We talked about the Fool last time, and that is card number 0. And the Magician is card number 1, Uno. I love the Magician. It's one of my favorite cards. To me, the Magician represents choice and autonomy and free will. And I've got a bunch of keywords here. I'll talk a little bit about each of them, and then I have some quotes as well, and I'll try to talk about those also. Before we get started with that, I wanted to say I think it's pretty fitting that the Magician is the first card that the Fool happens across when he's going on the linear Fool's journey, if you're looking at it from that perspective. Because if you think of the Fool as inspiration or the idea or the desire or the want to do something and go somewhere, the Magician is kind of like the first step that you take on that journey. So it's the plans that you make, it's the phone call that you make if you have to have a house sitter or if you have to have somebody come with you. Or if you're making a reservation for a place, or if you're calling to get some information about a gig that you're trying to book, whatever the case may be. I think it's just perfectly fitting that the Magician is the first card the Fool kind of runs to next. I've got some tea. I invite you to join me and drink whatever beverage suits your fancy. I think I've got just a very basic breakfast tea, but it's so good. Perfect. So, the Magician is what happens in tangible life. It's usually something that's happening very much on the world of the material or the real. It's the inner manifestation of will, choice, state of being. So if the Fool is the inspiration and going out and deciding to do something, the Magician is the transformation that takes place from that, the decision that you're going to, yes, actually follow through with this or go a different direction or do whatever it is you're going to do. That's the Magician. An inner state of being, an inner choice. Choice is a really good word for the Magician, I think. Another good word is responsibility. Responsibility is a beautiful word. It's got a lovely background. It's the ability to respond to any situation. So the Magician has the wherewithal and has the mental state to, regardless of what happens, know what to do next. He's electric. He is very responsive. He's very reactive. And I think of reactive and responsive as kind of similar in this circumstance because they're both taking action based on what something else has happened. So whether or not it's conscious or unconscious, the Magician has a shadowy side too. There's a lot of times when we take action and we're not fully aware of what effect that action is taking. So whether you're being reactive or responsive, you're still embodying that magician spirit, I think. Um, Magician is motivation and coordination. So it's the ability to hype yourself up to do something, to make yourself do what you've got to do, to make those choices, and also to coordinate that with your inspiration, with your desire, with what it is that you actually want to do. Um, it's taking ownership of a situation so that you can actually use your prerogative and interact with people, be a people, do something people would do, whether it's for yourself or with other people. Um, Accepting your role as somebody who does stuff is a big part of the magician's energy, I think. Finding your use, using things, learning how to use stuff around you, using the elements, using your own um, collaboration with the elements, finding that use for yourself and for things around you. It is the resilience that you build up from making those choices, from having that groundwork laid. You have sort of a layer of resilience that builds up, so that you have the ability to be responsive and respond, to make choices, to be autonomous. Um, I think it was Kellyanne Maddox who said that the magician is like planting seeds of creativity. It's like the creative seed. And I think actually a few people I've heard say that. And it's really, that's a beautiful idea because the fool is kind of like the seed itself, and the magician is kind of like planting that seed so that it can grow and watering the seed and everything else. So that's a big part of the magician's energy. Some other words that I think are kind of synonymous with magician, if you wanted to like make your own tarot deck or build your own tarot um, scrapbook or collage book or something. So those other words for the magician are witch, sorcerer, wizard, genius, conjurer, illusionist, magus, virtuoso, diviner, and then we have some more sort of different types of words. Um, so I think I put choice on here like 100 times because I think it is really important. Um, and also pure will, manifestation of pure will. So it's really about intention, setting your intention, finding out where you want your intention to go, and sending it there. Um, Creativity, imagination. It's about your ability, as far as like how you see yourself. So I don't mean that in the ableist, like how much can you actually do, but like how do you see yourself as somebody who can take action and do things to help yourself or to help others, your ability in that way. So it's a little bit more broad spectrum, I think, that way. Your skill. So, whatever your practice is, how skilled are you at it? How long have you been practicing it? How good are you at it? How fast can you respond in that skill set? How many types of diverse situations in that skill set can you deal with? So, like a great example is building something. How many types of things can you build? If you're a quilting specialist or a patchwork specialist, how many different things can you make? If you can sew, if you can mess around with needle and thread, how many different types of things can you create in that realm? If you are a metal worker, what kind of, or leather worker, what kind of stuff can you make in that regard? How diverse is your skill set. If you're a graphics design person or some other kind of artist or creator, what different kind of stuff can you do? How many different kinds of things can you do? If you're a repair specialist, how many different types of things can you repair? It's about mastering your skill set. If you're a tarot reader, how well do you grasp the understanding, the meaning behind all of the cards? How many different situations can you use tarot to respond to? How many different questions can you answer? um, and I think the magician is also largely about transformation. So it's the first step into that alchemical path. So it's the beginning of the transformation, the choice to change, the choice to be more, the choice to invest something is the first step to that alchemy, that transmutation. And it's mastery, of course. It's understanding your ability, wherever your ability is, understanding it, having a good understanding of it. The other word I would use with magician is knowledge, and then manifesting will with a combination of focus. So using your attention and your focus to be able to manifest your will, to set your intentions, to act on your intentions and bring change about in your reality, however you want that to happen. I'm putting my hand up here because it seems to make it easier to see me if I've got my hand blocking some of this insanely beautiful white light behind me. I was hoping you could see more of the design, but it looks like the light is mostly what's coming through, so who knows? It's determination. Magician is determination. And of course, consistency, being able to be consistent with yourself on your journey. On most decks, I don't have any with me right now, but the way that the magician is displayed, he usually has some tools laid out before him, like a wand and a chalice and a candle. And it's usually like on a table or they're accessible to him. He's got a bunch of different tools. And that can kind of make it look like he's an expert, like he's been doing this for a long time and he knows exactly what to do, or like he's performing some elaborate rite or something. But it could also be somebody that's just beginning and just starting out on their journey. And this stuff is, they're just coming to terms with all of these things. They're learning how to use all the stuff in their toolkit. So the choice to stay quiet or speak up is as much of a tool as making a potion or performing a powerful incantation. Like, it's not just about, even though incredibly beautiful psychodrama can happen when you're performing ritual for yourself or with others, a lot of times it can be very mundane. The magician can be about choosing to take care of yourself, brush your teeth, get a shower, make yourself something healthy to eat, clean up your space, declutter your space, go outside and take a walk, read a book, watch something, learn something. There's so many different ways that you can see the magician. It's not just about, I don't want to sound insulting, but it's not just about New Age and neo-pagan, like elaborate rites and stuff. Like, that's kind of what we've all gotten into, and it's fun. I get it. It's fun. We like it. We enjoy it. We connect with each other. But it can be making a kick-ass song, It can be making some kick-ass art or something like that. It doesn't have to just be, something like chanting spells. Okay, so believe it or not, the lighting is slightly better in here, even though it's still super blurry. Can't really do anything about that. but it's a little bit brighter. So cheers to that. Um, so, pulling the card of the magician could signify a need to step into your power, to decide where to invest your energy and take action, tangible steps to manifest your will. Um, it could also, if the fool is the seed of infinite possibility, then the magician is the first glance at responsibility and action. So it's really like the first steps that you take towards manifesting something. But if you think about it like starting a business or um, renovating a house or building, something substantial from very little, you will have lots and lots and lots of increasing stages of magicianhood. So like I said, if brushing your teeth is one of the first things you do that like reminds you you're a magician, and then making breakfast, and then taking a shower, it's also going to be calling clients and setting up appointments, or promoting yourself, getting advertising out for yourself, or working on building up solid content, building up your content in some way, shape, or form. So all of that stuff, no matter how advanced it gets, it can still be reminiscent of that magician quality. And that'll make a lot more sense, I think, once we get into some of the later cards in the major arcana, because I do think they relate to each other. And I definitely think that the eight, whether you consider it justice or strength, can definitely relate to the magician as far as being like a higher consciousness version of magician action. And then the devil is another upgraded higher level of magician consciousness, magician choice, magician action. And that'll make a little bit more sense once we get into it. But I wanted to put that out there for now because it's just so much fun. I enjoy thinking about things like that this way. I split them up into categories of 7 or categories of 3, and they all relate to each other pretty much the whole way throughout the major arcana. So let's do some quotes. The magician is also like the inner child. It's like children. Um, Children do a lot of stuff for the first time. Children are always learning. Children are always going out of their way to figure out how stuff works and what they can do and what's okay for them to do and what's not okay for them to do. So I love that comparison. Fred Rogers said, "The child in me is still and sometimes not so still." And this is a very magician vibe quote, because if you think about things like meditation, things like breath work and yoga and resting, going to sleep, um, even things like practicing certain exercises for different types of careers you might have, whether you're an artist or a musician or anything that uses your hands a lot, you're going to have to do eventually some exercises. You have to hold your hand in certain positions for long periods of time. And it feels really good, but it's a lot different than moving around constantly, taking constant action. The next quote is from Jim Henson, and he says, "The most sophisticated people I know, inside, they are all children." Now, that's an interesting concept, because it suggests that you have to keep your inner child alive and well to really maintain a sense of authenticity and interest in other people. And um, It's interesting too because the root word for sophisticated is tampered with or corrupted in some way, adulterated. So to suggest that to really authentically come off as someone who's been affected by society the most, that they actually have to be also the least affected by society is a very paradoxical, very, um, I don't know, it's a very paradoxical thing to say. I like it, um, but the root word for sophisticated just it just shows you what kind of things we put up on a pedestal as a collective, the Western society, the Western world. And it's not always good looking. It's not always something I feel a lot of pride in. The stuff that I would have felt pride in was burned at the stake for not fitting in the right way. So I've never really felt uh, a sense of camaraderie with the good old boys, and I'm kind of proud of that. I'm a rebel, and I'm proud of it. The next quote by Amit Ray: "Beautify your inner dialogue, beautify your inner world with love, light, and compassion. Life will be beautiful." So I think that's a really incredible thing to say about the magician is that you're doing a lot of work on yourself. A lot of the action that you take is like self action, practice, um, self knowledge, self collaboration, and cooperation, self self love, self communication, just getting to know yourself so that when you communicate with others, it comes from a more pure place, a more you place, more really authentically you. And Christine Feehan said, "It's all well and good to look back after the fact and see what we should have done, but we rarely know what path is best when we take that first step." That's a really good point. It's a lot of making your life happen is just taking risks, putting yourself out there and just letting things happen and seeing what comes of it, seeing what happens next. Ella Wheeler Wilcox says, "Always continue the climb. It is possible for you to do whatever you choose if you first get to know who you are and are willing to work with a power that is greater than ourselves to do it." That's incredible too. I really like the way that she says that. Um, Looking around at the world, it's pretty easy to feel small and insignificant, but it's also really magical. I think it's really inspiring. It inspires a lot of humility in me to look around at the world and see how beautiful it is and how easy everything just kind of works together. And it's not always easy. There's a lot of death and there's a lot of destruction and there's a lot of pain and suffering along with all the life and the celebration of life and how effortlessly it just kind of unfolds. But it's that paradoxical thing, again, everything just kind of happens without anything seeming to happen. And then again, it's all toil and drudge work. That's a lot of what it is. Um, and yet it looks so easy from the outside. And I think that's very true for our work too. We have to be willing to toil and do the hard work. But when we look at other people doing it, it's always going to look easier. They're always going to make it look easier because that's just the nature of being on the outside and looking in. So the magician knows that there is work that must be done to make these things happen. It's not just effortless. It doesn't just happen overnight. People don't just wake up and do this stuff. It takes a lot of effort and practice and persistence. Um, so you have to trust that process. You have to believe in something greater than yourself. Even as an atheist, I believed in the all that is. I believed in the spark of divinity that existed in everything. And I eventually translated that into pantheism and animism and figured out that I wasn't so much an atheist as a believer in God is in everything, goddess is in everything, divinity, deity is in everything. Um, and life got a lot more interesting after that. It got a lot more fun. Um, for me, anyways, I guess everybody can do their own thing. I'm not here selling animism or pantheism or anything. Hugh MacLeod says everyone is born creative. Everyone is given a box of crayons in kindergarten. And then when you hit puberty, they take the crayons away and replace them with dry, uninspiring books on algebra, history, etc. Being suddenly hit years later with the creative bug is just a wee voice telling you, I'd like my crayons back, please. I can so hear that voice inside myself. I've been doing a lot of childish things over the last year, from learning how to make necklaces to starting to make my own art again, to fixing my own clothes and playing with toys, playing with my daughter, having fun decorating the way I want to, kind of being silly with it. It's like once you start letting your inner child out, you feel a strong sense of freedom and a strong sense of at last, at last, I'm free, I can breathe. So I love that. Eric Pervanaji, Pernavegia, Pervernagie. It's Pevernagie. Eric Pervernagi. Pervernagi. If the glare of the public eye has become unbearable, our inner child may claim its rights, and our bodily shadow might turn into our mental second self and become our anchor, make us stay grounded, and grant us deepness and intensity. By retreating from the blaze of display into our substantial self, we gain rootedness, insight, and new worldly wisdom. That's a really good one. Just about being true to yourself and allowing yourself to take a retreat, not always having to be performing and being on stage, but allowing yourself to kind of turn back into yourself and take time to do whatever it is you need to do. Jean-Paul Sartre says, we are our choices. Beautiful. Absolutely true. And Susan Delgado says, if you choose not to deal with an issue, then you give up your right of control over the issue and it will select the path of least resistance. I love that because it's like a lot of times people who don't take an active role in their life will end up in places they're not really sure how they got there or what's happening or why they're dealing with all this stuff. And I've personally been there myself, so that's the only reason I feel like I can speak to it. But the path of least resistance is not always a good place to be. It's a lot of times really shadowy. It's going to involve, all of the decisions that we've made and how it's affected our life and where we are right now. So anything shadowy that we're doing, anything that we're doing for kind of like unseeable but ill intentions, stuff like that, uh, that is the path of least resistance. So when you are not dealing with stuff and you just keep going and going and going and going, that shadowy side kind of builds up and builds up. And then when it's where you're going to go, eventually you've got nothing but an uphill climb. And granted, dealing with it, yeah, you'll be really strong by the end, but you've still got to deal with it. So this has been my video on the magician. Thank you for joining me. Have a lovely day.